I watched that entire innings, by the way. I was lucky not
It
to have
didn't take
much
you.
work.
Don't be too proud about it because it didn't take you too long. The way I term it in my head is, I call it the great escape for two reasons. And the next day, Gavaskar goes to Kapil Dev and says, "You have to bowl. It doesn't matter whether you're fit, you're unfit, you lose two more muscles. You got to bowl."
Wow, I eat too much biryani. I can bowl for India anytime. Just give me a call up.
The truth is, I have not seen an Indian fast bowler like Jasprit Bumrah.
It's in the air. It's a six.
Yup, it's called Century of Stories, Cricket. And I've got Joy with me, Joy Bhattacharjya, legend himself. And we're going to discuss all kinds of things to do with Melbourne Cricket Ground, Melbourne antics, performances. Keep in mind that as we record this, we finished the Brisbane Test in the BGT and we're waiting for the famous Boxing Day tests. What's going to happen? It's 1-1. What a fantastic series it's been so far. And the predictions will come towards the end. But Ashwin has just left before we start on the MCG. Ashwin has just left, not just red ball cricket, but all forms of cricket. I think he'll play the IPL, but other than that, nothing.
Yeah. No, it's just a huge thing for Indian cricket because he's going. Unfortunately, the sad thing is, so many wickets he's taken, so much he's done for India. Very few cricketers get that one thing they all crave for, which is to be able to leave the way they wanted to.
Correct.
And he would have probably thought, what's a better way to go than Sydney? Perhaps spinning conditions, he gets an opportunity.
But I think he would have liked Chepauk with 35,000 fans screaming and all that fair. But you're right, Sydney, and that's why I didn't understand also because you might play two spinners. There's a very good chance you'll play two spinners. So he would probably play that test. So
the only reason he would have retired is if he was told either that he's not going to play or they're not sure of him playing. They're the only conditions. Otherwise, he wouldn't go that far. Stay there and not play.
My question to you, Joy, then is who told him that? Because I didn't tell him and you didn't tell him. So somebody else has told him that and we have to find out who. But we'll leave Ashwin aside for now and move on to Melbourne Cricket Ground and the legend that it has become. But it's called the Boxing Day Test, and I think you have some idea about why this word Boxing Day, forget Test, comes about.
Absolutely. Boxing Day we know is one day after Christmas. It's December the 26th. And the tradition is, and it's it's a tradition I actually like, and I think it's a tradition that India could well do with, which is that what happens on the 25th is Christmas is always very busy for families. Okay?
Right.
And so everyone, all the help around, all the staff also they spend a lot of time helping out on Christmas Day, and it should be a holiday for them, but it can't be because the family needs to enjoy. So what used to happen was on the 26th, the day after, the people of the house would give their staff a gift in boxes, presents, saying thank you for looking after us on the 25th. And it's an unboxing day actually in that sense because they'd be getting these presents and they'd get it. So that's why it's called Boxing Day. And that's become a tradition now.
How sad, because my good friend Vikram Tarani, I used to box him on 26th December. We have no idea that the concept has nothing to do with physical fighting. It's actually to do with presenting gifts to people who worked for you or helped you and you feel need to be shown some gratitude and love.
Which is something we could well do with.
So can Australia give us a Boxing Day gift?
Yeah, we've travelled so far, they need to.
Yeah.
And they have done it in the past. I mean, every now and then they've gifted us a test match out there.
Yeah. It started a long time back, the Boxing Day Test tradition, and it's a huge thing and all that. But let's look at some of the highlights as per what we remember from our lifetime, and we're both slightly on the wrong side of 30 now. So going back in time, I think we'll go with the 77 Melbourne Cricket Test. Is that the first one we can think of?
77 was a fascinating series because it's happening while this series is happening. Remember, the Packer tests are happening on the sidelines,
right? And
the only guy who could have played for the Packers was that level is Jeff Thompson was playing out here. And it's a fantastic series because, Bob Simpson has come back at the age of 42, is brought back from retirement to captain this Aussie side. Bedi is a flamboyant captain. He'll win, lose, he'll take chances. So this series goes 2-2 and then it's finally decided when India can't, chase 437 odd on the 5th test match. But it's a fantastic series. It's great cricket to watch, great competition. And Chandrasekhar just takes over, This Melbourne test, he just takes over, wins it for India. They were 2-0 down. And they make it back. And I think that's the first time I remember pictures from the Melbourne coming in.
So just to put it in perspective, we were 2-love down. We come back to 2-all, which is very rare. And first, you don't have too many 5-test series, and then we lose the last one finally.
Yeah.
But it's a very, very tight series. And in this particular Melbourne Test, Chandra takes 6 for 52.
Yeah.
Not once, ladies and gentlemen, but twice.
Twice, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think Gavaskar gets a century, and I think that's what it is, that the kind of players that you had then, Gavaskar, if he didn't get runs in Australia, we wouldn't win in those days.
Mm-hmm.
And of course...
he got a bag full of runs in that series as well.
He got a
runs
back.
everywhere.
I think he got 3 centuries in a row.
Right.
And at one time, I remember in those days, we were looking at will he catch up the illustrious Everton Weeks, because
5.
Weeks had 5 and
Yeah. He got a 90 after that as well, right?
Yeah, he
Everton
got a
Weeks.
90, yeah.
We digress, we cricket lovers. So 77 came close but didn't ultimately win the series, but had some great moments. Setting up for the Zamana that we're in today, where we're going neck and neck with the Aussies.
So I want to talk about the MCG for a couple of other things also. First, the dimensions of the field. I remember the first time, I'm used to Indian grounds. You go to the MCG, it's a huge ground. That means in the sheer size of the ground, the size of the boundaries, the size of the ground. And the Aussies, you didn't have these 60, 65-yard boundaries. You had these 90, 85, 90, 95-yard boundaries. So it used to go really far out. And I remember, especially in those early days, 80s and all, India didn't have the greatest fielders. We were not the fittest people on earth, If you ever seen Prasanna running in a cricket ground, you'd understand.
I thought you do know names, but you couldn't resist. Yeah,
you
go on.
resist.
Yeah.
Or Dilip Dosh.
All the spinners. All the spinners were not the best fielders.
Can you imagine? You're fielding in the slips and there's an edge and it goes towards third man. And these guys are running and running and running. And 5s have been run against, teams out there.
Yeah.
And I remember one famous case where the batters were thinking of running a 6. When the guy who's not reached the ball had not reached the boundary, he just kicked it over, so it just became a 4 instead of a 6.
A 5 became a 4 and no chance of getting into 6.
Absolutely.
Yeah, smart thinking. Only the subcontinental can produce that cunning as far as we're concerned. So that's it. The size is huge. Strangely, it's not been used for weddings. What a waste of a ground,
It's been used for Olympics, but not for
Olympics, yes, but weddings, come on. Where are our boys when we need them? Our boys and girls, or whatever today the traditional wedding has changed. Back to the MCG. So that's 77. 81, as a young boy, that was one of my first memories of Test cricket on the radio, was the 81 Test, and that's just so much drama. Let's begin with the SMG incident.
Yeah, I mean...
DK versus SMG.
Yeah, absolutely. He is batting... His first time, and he's not got runs in this.
He's 70 odd.
Yeah, he's not got runs in this series. The first time he and Chetan Chauhan have stitched together a
big partnership, yeah.
And then he gets a ball that he's
going down leg.
Yeah, going down leg, which he's very sure he's not out. And he was just going to walk out. I mean, he was fuming. He was going to walk out, and then he had a comment, and then he said, "No, I'm going to now take..."
It was a pure Aussie compliment.
Pure
the
Aussie
type you don't hear enough today.
Yeah, type you don't hear enough today, saying, "Perhaps why don't you come to my house for dinner?"
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, and he just walks back and he picks up Chetan Chauhan and come on, Gavaskar is Chetan Chauhan's captain. He's not going to...
He grabs his hand and makes him walk.
They start walking.
What is Chetan Chauhan thinking?
He's
never played a game like this.
He's probably wondering that anyway I don't get too many chances. Now I'm going to get banned for the rest of my life. Anyway, so he's walking out. Fortunately, at that time, the Indian manager there, I think it's Commander Durrani, he stops him, calms him down. And I remember for 3-4 minutes they're standing out there.
Sunny reminded me then of me as a young boy, where if you give me out, I'm taking my bat and we're not playing any more cricket. That's
absolutely.
it. Cricket is cancelled. Yeah.
But
this was not a Boxing Day test, by the way. It was just a normal Melbourne test.
Yeah. And then look at how things turned after that.
Yeah.
So then we've just set them 143 to win. And this is, I think, the 4th day. And suddenly Ghavri comes into bowl because Kapil Dev is injured.
Towards the end of the day, this is.
End of the day, Kapil Dev is injured. So Kapil Dev has not taken the new ball. Kapil Dev is injured. I think he's got a groin pull or a stomach muscle pull. Yeah. And he's not there. So Ghavri comes in and he gets John Dyson out, and in walks Greg Chappell, perhaps in those days with Gavaskar the best batter in the world.
Context, he got a double century in the game before or something.
Yeah.
Greg Chappell his form was fantastic.
He was in fantastic form, and I think it was first ball. He gets him first ball. Kassan Ghavri gets him first ball. And then, for once, the Indians smell a chance. And the next day, Gavaskar goes to Kapil Dev and says, "You have to bowl. It doesn't matter whether you're fit, you're unfit, you lose 2 more muscles, you've got to bowl." He gives the ball to Kapil Dev. Next day, Kapil Dev steams in 5 for 28. I don't know how he bowled out there. A guy who couldn't bowl the day before. He comes in, takes a wicket in there, I think 81 all out. It was an incredible victory. And, for all of us listening to the radio commentary, we went crazy. I mean, When Ghavri got Greg Chappell, we couldn't believe it. Everything turned.
Yeah.
And it's one of my most memorable experiences listening to the radio.
And we missed out on Vishy's 100. Which happens a little earlier than that. One of the finest innings, etc.
About 114, wasn't
114.
Yeah.
Playing his square cuts, wherever you bowl to him, he'll go square off on the offside and make sure it's that side of the wicket for 4. But also, this is a full-strength Australian team. Not to belittle 77, but for what it's worth, they didn't have many of their stars there. This is a full-strength Australian team, and now we've beaten them fair and square, sometimes against a run of play, you could say, from that horrible incident with Sunny to the end where Kapil destroys them. I think, for a lot of people, you talk about 83 World Cup as a huge moment and all that, no doubt, but I think this is also a decent moment in Indian cricket.
Huge.
Red ball history.
Absolutely. And the way I term it in my head is, I call it the great escape for 2 reasons. One is that had Sunny actually walked out then with Chetan Chauhan, I don't know how his international career, because remember in those days, the entire ICC used to be controlled by the English and the Australians. Okay?
Right.
And so what sanctions would have come down, how India would have reacted,
right.
We don't have the muscle power that we have now.
Correct.
So that, and secondly, that series we were 1-0 down. That 1-all and drawing Australia, I thought it was an incredible result for us.
Oh, now I think there'll be no problem. We can go in and out of the boundary rope. No, you dare say anything. Let's move then, as many as we can take of the Melbourne cricket specials. Then we go to 99, I think. We can go to 99.
99, I was there, and I only remember it for that one thing.
This is your first time watching cricket at the G?
Cricket in Australia. First time watching, and I remember, of course, if I digress a bit, I landed in Adelaide, and I remember telling Harsha, it's the first time I'm in Australia.
Yeah.
And it was a weekday at 11 o'clock in the morning, and I go and say, is there a band or a strike today? So he said, why? I said, where are the people? There's nobody out there. Yeah. He says, it's like this all the time. Yeah. And that was an experience. And Melbourne, for the first time experiencing it, Melbourne has sort of 4 types of weather in a single day. It'll be bitterly cold, then the sun will come out, then it'll start raining, then it'll become hot again. It's absolutely crazy weather. And this ground is like, it's so big that it really scares you. And watching Sachin Tendulkar play out there was the ultimate experience, because around him, batters are not getting bat on ball. This is McGrath steaming in, Brett Lee there. They have a fantastic bowling attack, and we are completely outmatched. We've just collapsed. You remember, just before that has all the match fixing issues, the scandal has happened.
Right, yeah.
Jadeja's gone. This is a new Indian team, a much younger Indian team. And Sachin is captain. I think Kapil Dev is coach, and they just are not prepared enough. And he's like, literally at that test match, Sachin Tendulkar is like the boy on the burning deck. Every around him, wickets are just falling. He's the only guy standing out there, and he's batting on.
How do you rate the quality, again, we're digressing for a second, of batsmanship?
Incredible. Because I think that was, we talk about other series, but they had McGrath, they had one. They had their top bowlers. Everybody was there.
They basically trashed us also.
We were smashed in that series. And if you remember that entire tour, I was there for 3.5 months. Okay, India won one match, one ODI match against Pakistan is the only thing we won where Sourav Ganguly scored a century. Otherwise, can you imagine, for 2.5-3 months you're playing every time you're losing. It was a tour that really, and it actually in many ways it defined India, because Lakshman went and got runs after that, and after that it became that we are not going to allow the Australians to do this to us. And then in Kolkata, of course, and Chennai, after that we turned the tables.
So the germ was set in there, and then slowly we could see the friction happening, if I can use the wrong word. Let's go up then to the next time we're in, which I think now we've reached the golden age of Indian Test batting, because all the big guns are batting together in the lineup. So much so that sometimes you're wondering whether you can put all of them in, because there's others to come as well. What are your memories of the next tour?
I was there at the next tour as well. And I remember the one thing we remember is that not much. Sehwag gets 195, gets out trying to hit a 6. But that's the thing. By then, Sourav is a captain. And I think Sourav as a captain is a more relaxed captain, or allows players to do more. And this is now a much solider Indian side. They've beaten the Australians in India. They know what they're doing. And they have that. They've just drawn in Brisbane. In Brisbane, Sourav Ganguly scored 144. The kind of cricket that we played on that tour, lot is talked about is Sehwag. But you don't realize that one of the major contributors to this was Akash Chopra. Because he keeps blunting the red ball on the other side and making sure that the batters have a chance to score.
Pujara does that, batting at 3 for us in 2 or 3 consecutive tours as well.
Yeah, absolutely. 2018.
So that's a thing they talk about playing in Australia always, that you have to have an opener who can watch the new ball so that the middle order can really come into their own, which is something probably lost on a lot of teams today who go hammer and tongs from the beginning.
Absolutely. And I think the problem is that batters today don't know any other way to go other than play hammer and tongs. And, you're seeing this around the world, that batters who are even test match batters are now trying to become T20 batters because, hey, somebody's got to pay the bills and test matches are not paying the bills anymore.
But like you mentioned offline in another episode as well, after some time practices makes perfect. So you play too much of T20 or play too much of cricket where you're always looking to up the scoring rate, which is a great thing, positive cricket and all that. But at the end of the day, there are certain conditions where you have to allow the bowler to, have his way and bide your time.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing. And especially in grounds like Melbourne, you will get help. It's not as fast a track as Perth was in the WACA days. It's not as bouncy a track as Brisbane is. So you're talking about a track where Indians can play. It's a track where if you can play out those first 10-12 overs, you have a chance. You have a really good chance.
IDFC First Fact. Now, while the MCG is always associated with a Boxing Day test, scheduling issues in 1989 meant that it resulted in Australia and Sri Lanka playing in the only Boxing Day ODI on the 26th of December. The match marked the ODI debuts of Mark Taylor and Sanath Jayasuriya. But coming back to this whole Christmas, Boxing Day cultural thing that Australia has, if you remember, the teams that are involved in the Boxing Day test, they used to dress up in the old days. I remember watching the Mike Gatting dressed up as a barmaid, subsequently perhaps the wrong decision.
Not a good idea.
Unnecessary. But they would have this costume thing going on. Their families would be involved. So it became a very sort of cultural, international exchange program.
Absolutely. And in fact, very interestingly, what they did for Boxing Day was the fact that I think the Victorian Cricket Association, which, runs cricket in Melbourne, they sort of took out a patent on it. And that meant that Boxing Day, 26th, it became a tradition. And I think that's a fantastic idea because if you do that, you get longevity. It's become a tradition. Every year we're going to dress up, we're going to do this.
People plan. Yeah. A lot of people plan, not just Australia, people worldwide who are cricket nuts and have the money, plan to go there for this week because this week is huge, not just from a cricketing point of view now.
Exactly, and you're getting everything. You're coming there, you're enjoying Christmas in Melbourne. You're enjoying Christmas in nice warm weather, you're not freezing your butt off.
Yeah.
And you're enjoying it, you're having good time, and the next day you start watching, fantastic test cricket. So I think that's what it is. And I think that patent was taken out now. After that, the Cricket Australia has taken it over. And while other countries have tried to do it, and Perth has tried to say, we should have the Boxing Day test match. Firstly, Perth will never get it because it's in the middle of a series, and logically for you to, fly all the way to Perth and then come back.
It's almost like another country in Australia.
It's like another country in Australia, absolutely. Yeah. So it doesn't make much sense. So I think that tradition is fantastic. And this is one thing I want to say before we get out of this, is that India used to have just one venue like that where you used to have test matches like that. We used to have a Pongal Day test match in Chennai.
Really?
Yeah. And that used to, from the 60s...
With a festive occasion in background.
Exactly. From the 60s to the 80s, it was regularly there. And now it's gone simply because you have a situation where there's a rotation policy, so you can't give people test matches. And
except during the pandemic when we played England twice in Chennai back to back, winning one, losing one. Yeah,
correct. So now you have a situation where unfortunately you don't have that anymore. And I think as test matches are really declining, you need to have these traditions around them.
Speaking of Brett Lee, he was more ruthless than the forex charges, which are there usually on most cards. But luckily, IDFC First Bank's first WOW credit card is the antidote because they have 0 forex charges on their cards. All right, let's talk about, we missed out on one gentleman towards the latter part now of the Melbourne sort of look, historical perspective, which is Jasprit Bumrah, 2018. And at the moment, I don't want to put any, as we say in Mumbai, Panvati on it because we are in the middle of a series. But he's just looking as good as any bowler I've ever seen. I'm thinking Ambrose, Marshall growing up, Wasim Akram, and I'm putting him right there. Right there.
So there are 2-3 things. There's one thing they call recency bias, saying that, the current guy is the best.
Yeah.
But I think most of us suffer from the reverse, that the good old guys are the best and all that. The truth is, I have not seen an Indian fast bowler like Jasprit Bumrah. I mean, couple they've had that beautiful outswinger, but the range of things that Bumrah can do, and there's a very good metric for deciding this. If you look at it, it's a number of deliveries that people play false shots on. And his number is an insane number of deliveries. That he invites false shots on an insane number of deliveries, and that for you more than even wickets is a sign that the bowler is getting ahead.
He's like magic. He has no run up. He just sort of turns up. It's not like you're not looking at Shoaib Akhtar at the far end coming in, steaming in. He just sort of goes there and he does something and he suddenly moves the ball both ways.
I think Ishant described it best. Scooter action. It's like kicking a scooter. That's what he does.
Yeah, that is. Ishant is spot on. Fantastic. I'm asking you this because we're now going to get into the fact that we're in the middle of this season where we're about to get into Christmas and Boxing Day Test match, and Jasprit Bumrah has been the man of the series for me from either side, with due respect to Travis Head. And that's a lucky ground for him in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. He's won a Test match for us out here in 2018. Yeah. 21. I mean, Rahane, that amazing result.
We should talk about that. We must talk about.
We
21.
must talk about that because your last innings is 36.
Home. 36 is your last innings.
Yeah, and then your captain goes home.
And
you've just lost Shami. He's got himself injured.
Which, sadly to say, ladies and gentlemen, happens far too often. Yeah. Some cricketers should come with the first aid kit.
It's the biryani curse. They call it the biryani curse.
Is it?
Yeah.
Which means what?
You eat too much biryani, things like that happen to you.
Wow. I eat too much biryani. I can bowl for India anytime. Just give me a call up. So, against the run of play, nobody gives them a chance in hell except the great Ravi Shastri, who's, fearless in a sense and says we can beat anyone, anywhere, anytime. Yeah. And Rahane, fantastic century.
Yeah.
Melbourne. Bit like Vishy's 81 century. Yeah.
Rahane gets a century, and I think that's the thing that Shubman Gill gets you a little bit. So a lot of people
you dent the bowling and then you take over. Yeah,
you dent the bowling and you take over, and I think that's what it is. I mean, the way they played out there, the question is not, had Melbourne not gone the way it did in 21, you would have never got the miracle of the Gabba. No matter what it is. And the Gabba is...
we would have lost the series.
Yeah, it's the more emotional result because number of people who are injured, because by the time Melbourne wins, we had even more people injured. Yeah. But just that, the way they came back after 36... Because remember, in that test match, the test match that we lost before that was Adelaide, right?
Adelaide, pink ball.
We were leading the first innings. I mean, we had scored 200 odd and they were scored 176. So correct. It was looking as if India is, doing well.
Or at least cut to cut. Yeah.
And then 36.
I watched that entire innings, by the way. I was lucky not to have much work.
Don't be too proud about it because it didn't take you too long.
Yeah, that's true. It's one of those things.
You're not saying...
This is one of the things when you say, Mom, I'm going for a shower. And you come out and the game's over. Yeah. Oh, we should make fun. All right, so we're setting this up now. Again, when you watch this years later, I hope it's watched by people years later as well. You'll know whether we've been foolish or spot on in terms of prediction. But it's been a fairly even test series so far in many ways. I think the batsmen on both sides have been playing, if I may say so. And the bowlers have been fantastic. For us, Bumrah's on another level. For them, maybe 2 or 3 of them have really stood out. What's your prediction?
I think India's going to take this. And
even if you lose the toss, bat a second?
I think not giving the follow-on was a big psychological factor in our favor. And Cummins is a smart guy. He tried to play it against us, saying that, it was nice to see Indians celebrating not getting a follow-on.
Yeah.
But it was a big moment. And somewhere, I think, you're looking at people like Rohit and Kohli and saying, thanks for giving us another chance.
Yeah.
They've literally got another chance to try and win a series for them.
Look, we may have saved the game in any case, but I think if we had to follow on, that was the only way a result would have happened.
Yeah.
There was no other way. There's just not enough time.
There's not enough time.
Yeah.
No, follow on. So the moment he evaded the follow on.
And Gambhir knew. You could see the reactions. They played enough cricket to know that this was it. The game is now more or less an exhibition after this.
Because 213 for 9. Yeah. You would back your chances to say they're not going to get 245.
And the tailenders have made no run so far in these conditions also. And then Bumrah bats again Botham.
Akash
with my God, Kapil Dev. Yeah, what the hell happened? Okay, so prediction from you is a final result of the series with 2 to play?
2-1 India.
2-1 India. Expecting Sydney to be a bit of a draw and
I expect Sydney to be a draw. I think Melbourne we're going to win.
All right. That's Joy. And just to balance it out so that we don't do reverse karma issues, I'll say 2-1 Australia. Okay. See, also that means one of us should be correct.
One of us should be
now,
correct.
if both the games are drawn, we never speak to each other again, Joy.
Yeah. Or if we have a tight test, then we're dead.
Can you imagine? Not again. No mas.
We've had enough.
As we say in boxing, no mas. No mas. All right. So that is a Melbourne special. As you mentioned, I didn't know about this lovely information about Pongal and Chennai being, cultural feast coming with a cricket feast at the same time. It's something administrators around the world can think of. Just to spin it a little more to make, as you said, Test cricket more, not just lucrative, but enticing.
See, what's happening today is that you have a lot of people who travel for games. It never used to happen 20 years, 25 years back. So many people travel, especially Indians,
English.
Yeah. So build a tradition. Okay, this is a test match that happens, Boxing Day test match, a Pongal Day test match, maybe a New Year's in Kolkata. Get those, Joe Berg having a test match at a particular time. Because that England season, Lord's Test at a particular time. Build a season so that you have something that Test cricket can still celebrate.
And the narrative is much more layered, much more happening, and hopefully over tradition, over a period of time, builds and builds and builds, and people keep going. And of course, the world is a place where we can afford to go. That's another story. This is not the show for that. As we say, by your last memory, question is your last memory. If you had to give me a standout Melbourne performance by an Indian cricketer, bat, ball, whatever, choose one. I'll put you on a spot.
I'm going to go with Rahane in 21, simply because of where he came from.
Okay. So we are very close, but I'm going to go with Gundappa Vishwanath, 114. I mean, I just love that guy. He was my first, batting crush, if you want to call it that. I just loved him. What a batsman. Don't forget the greats, ladies and gentlemen, as we say bye from Century of Stories Cricket. Dr. Joy, thank you very much. By the way, you're not really a doctor.
No, of course I'm a doctor.
What the hell?
And you're the Queen of England.
Oh, that's fair. I'm only the Queen on weekends because work is slow. Yeah. Because you stay till the very end, here is a tip for you to stay safe online from IDFC FIRST Bank and me. A scam which is getting very popular these days is quishing. Although the name is cute, the scam in itself is very evil, folks. In quishing, the scammers will send you a QR code to scan, which will redirect you to a fake website created by the scammers, which can store your personal information. So to stay safe, never scan any QR code which is not shared by a trusted source, and don't ever share any kind of information via QR codes.